And maybe at the end of the day, there is nothing to be anxious about. So let's hear. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello. We will be talking until 5 o'clock, and I will let you some 5 to 10 minutes to ask your own questions. So while we are talking, please think if you have something to ask this very, very brilliant participant of this panel, whom I'm really, really glad to host here. And hello, Woyciech, how are you?
Hello. Hello. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can. This is really science fiction to see you here on the screen. So nice to have you. You are in Poland, where?
Warsaw.
Yes, somewhere
Just
in Poland.
the capital.
In Warsaw. Okay. I would like to start with a question to all of you, the same question. And Katarzyna said very nicely that science fiction scares her. And I would like to ask all of you to talk personally and to tell us, can you describe the first encounter with Stanislav, with Clem? How old were you? When and where did Stanislav Lem found you? Aaron.
Okay.
You have a microphone.
I am blinded, but by this light can be a bit.
Do you want to change places with me? Use your microphone, okay? Microphone? Yes.
I use my microphone. Okay. Well, I should say first that we now celebrate the 100 years of the 100 years since
For Stanislav Lem's birth. Yes.
birthday, and 60 years since Solaris was written, and 40 years since Solaris was translated by myself.
Yes, you are, and I must say this is an excellent translation of Solaris. If you did not read Solaris, I highly recommend this book in the excellent translation by Aaron. Yes.
So,
how old were you when you met Lem for the first time?
My encounter with Lem was Tarkovsky's film. I saw it in London in the mid-70s. The film was released in 1972, I think. And I saw it 2 or 3 years later in London. I was intrigued by the commercial that said the Russian reply to the British Space Odyssey 2001 by Kubrick and Clark. So I was very interested to see it because I was then and I am still a science fiction fan. And when I saw this film, I was totally hypnotized. Really. Captivating, it's powerful. It's not exactly the book, as you know, people who read it, but it made me very curious to read the book. And when I read the book, I was hypnotized again. And then I understood how the book is powerful more than the film. And then I had this funny ambition that if it should be translated, I should be the translator. I'm not a professional.
And your dream came true, so it's really wonderful. Woyciech, can you tell us when did you first meet Stanislav Lem?
Oh, that's a bit embarrassing because I have to admit that I was always a kind of strange kid, but I read him first when I was about 5. I learned myself to read, and when I saw my father literally laughing so hard that he fell to the floor from laughter, I just had to know what's so funny, and that's how I read my first book, which was Star Diaries, which is a very funny, very hilarious book. And I'm very happy that you have chosen this particular film because it is a comedy. And remember that this is the only film adaptation Stanislav Lem himself liked. The only one he liked about his fiction was comedy, and it tells something about how important humor was for him. So even his serious books like Solaris has a lot of hidden innuendos, allusions. I wonder how well it was translated, but Lem loved puns, loved jokes. He didn't want to scare people. He wanted to make people laugh. So I started. So that was my love with the first laugh as a child.
So you like to laugh. And Ari, your first encounter with Lem?
Yeah, I have a question for you first. After I purchased the rights for the Futurological Congress, I attended a lecture. Were you previously in Israel lecturing about Lem?
Oh,
It
you were
was
here.
you?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
I'm a human Greek.
there was
So
a
you
lecture
attended the
titled "Why Did Stanislav Lem Hated All Film Adaptations to His Book?" Was it you?
All feature adaptations. This was a TV sort, so
but it
that
was-
was his only exception.
But it was you who made the lecture in Icon. Great to meet you again. You changed my life because no, it's great.
Good to meet you.
I
yes.
think because I purchased the rights for the beautiful book that Aaron translated fantastically, and I read it as a teenager. I have the urge to say I read it when I was 3 years old. You said 5. No, not for Solaris, for the Futurological Congress. Who
Unfortunately, you did not
Okay.
translate.
And I went to see his lecture. It was titled "Why Did Stanislav Lem Hated All Adaptations to His Books?" And I felt such a relief. I mean, we were 3 or 4 people in the room. I felt really a relief because I said, okay, this guy, I mean, Lem was adapted to film by Tarkovsky, who was my biggest idol in film. My kids can reassure this because they're here. And by Soderbergh and by Vaida here, like really the greats, and he already hated everything that was done, so I'm really secured now. You know, I can do whatever I want. He's dead anyhow. And the family won't mind because they're used to it, that he hates the adaptation. So thank you for that.
So actually, Ari's meaningful encounter was with you, Woyciech, not with Lem.
No, I read the Congress and how is it called in English? Siberiada? Siberiad, which is I think every kid should read it at the age of 10. I think the translation is still fresh and funny as hell, and it expands really the boundaries of reality and the way we think. It's great. I still have it at home, and I can read just the short stories.
Can you tell us
of the
what you love so much about Lem, and all of you? What do you love about him? What connects you to Lem and to Lem's work?
Like me?
Yeah, everyone.
What connects me? I think that it's the best of the best in science fiction, because usually the science fiction is perceived by many people like something that technology is the center. The real protagonist is the technology. The inventions, the future speculation about the impact of technology, but people are the less important part. And in Lem is a wonderful combination. On one side, there's speculative science, like in Solaris, this strange being, the Solaris ocean, that is the most wonderful and sophisticated extraterrestrial intelligence that I know about in science fiction. And on the other hand, its impact on people and how people are exposing their innerst fears, nightmares in front of this other reality. So this combination of the human psychology, philosophy, philosophy of science, and many questions that are very profound, that are not usually found in the conventional science fiction.
So you like to
even
think.
theological questions. Like
You find him fascinating by
Yeah.
his ideas, yes.
Because the real greatness of Solaris is that it's multi-layered. There is the upper layer is you could say the standard science fiction story. Strange things happen in a space station that is hovering above an alien planet with a strange, intelligent or not even sure if it's intelligent or not, but very strange being, the Solaris ocean, and people are committing suicide, and strange things appear. It's a very suspensive story.
So you like the philosophical layers of the book?
You can end at this point and enjoy the book. But then when you look at the deeper layers, you see that psychological layer, how people are haunted by their own memories, which are materialized, physically materialized by the Solaris ocean. It can penetrate people's minds and recreate their memories.
Thank you. Ari, what do you love about Clem personally?
I think Solaris is a great example, because I think usually when we think sci-fi, writers and directors, they try to humanize the future always. We will have aliens, we will always have creatures. I mean, they will look assembly like us. They will be shorter, without ears, with genitals, without, it doesn't matter. But in general, it's always the point of view of the human telling about the future, which is discovered by people like us somewhere out of space, and the use of technology. And I think when we first met in the research for the Congress, you told me that technology doubles itself the progress of technology.
Maybe.
Yeah, and no, so it's like it will always be not updated when you look at a sci-fi movie. Just a second now. I think that the thing in Solaris is there are no aliens and there's no technology, and the issue is the ocean, and to think that the ocean is literally a huge brain, and this huge brain he thinks in a way of revenge those humans who are in a way humiliating or whatever, and he's working on a method of guilt, and he creates the characters that you feel guilty for, that you need to challenge again. I mean, this is on every philosophic, psychological level. It's just brilliant in one sense, and very simple and not pretentious in any technological way.
It is, I agree, but I want to be personal, because I know you are so right about Clem being brilliant, but because you are personally here, I want to ask you, where does it touch you personally? Why you and also you, וויצ'ק, why do you love him so much? Where does it touch you as human being, as yourself?
So, if I may, I love his books, especially because they have so many layers. So anytime you read it again, you read actually another book. You make new discoveries. And for instance, Solaris can be interpreted in so many ways, like you said in this discussion, that the ocean is a brain. But maybe it isn't. It's never openly said in a book. It's one way to read it, but you can read it differently. You can also, there is among people who try to understand this book, there's a decent movement of people who say that it's all a dream. It's not happening for real. The main protagonist asks himself this question, am I dreaming? And he's proving himself that he's not dreaming in a way you cannot actually prove it. So this proof is wrong. Maybe he's crazy. Maybe it's on a lunatic asylum or something like this. You can read Solaris on simply many layers, and the same goes for the Futurological Congress. That's why I was very happy about the film adaptation, where you managed to, I think you managed to transfer all those layers and add your own, which is compatible with the other ones. So I think your film, just like the book, can be reinterpreted in many other ways. For instance, when I last time saw it, I saw it as a film about filmmaking. I wonder if you agree. But also you can watch it as a climate dystopia. You can watch it as a story on virtual reality. There are so many ways you can understand your film, and the book is like this. It's like a layer cake, like the short comedy we just saw. Every Clem's book can be reread again as a different book.
Thank you. Ari, did you immediately know that from all of so many books Clem wrote, you wanted to do the Congress? Or did you have any doubts, or did you consider Solaris maybe, or another book, or story?
No, Solaris was done by the masters already. And I think Solaris is in such a top philosophical level, it was not for me to challenge. By the way, thank you for all the compliments, and I think because of them the film was a box office disaster. But I read the Congress when I was a teenager. I never knew that I'm going to go to film school. When I went to film school,
it's a great film.
Yeah,
you must see it.
I thought that it's an incredible story. I thought I want to adapt this, but I didn't have the tools, and not financially, just in the mind how to do it. And when I discovered animation before Bashir in a TV show that I made, I thought animation is the tool, but I couldn't tell the story as it was. With Ion Tichy, his protagonist and everything, it didn't make sense to me. And I was visiting in Cannes Film Festival, and I saw in the market in Cannes, I saw this really glorious actress. I don't want to mention her name, that I adored as a teenager and then in film school, and I couldn't recognize her totally. And my agent told me, "Do you know her?" And I said, "No," and told me her name, and I was shocked. And I thought, how does it feel to be her when she arrives at the place which is like the mecca of cinema, going to Cannes, and no one recognizes her. She can go on the Crozet and no one knows who she is. And I thought, okay, she's gonna be my Ion Tichy. And it took me like a year or two just to crack who is gonna be. And then it was her. No journalist going to this unknown mid-American, Central American country, and the changes were huge. And we had a sneak preview that was on YouTube during the process of the film, and the Clem estate contacted me to ask me, who is that woman, playing Ion Tichy in our movie after the contract we signed.
So he saw the
He didn't. He was not alive anymore, but the estate, the family, they saw it, and it was, I think, you should approve, but I think it was the most far away adaptation out of his books. And my Polish distributors, they were super afraid that the family would turn against the movie when it's out in Poland. But when it was released, they had a statement that the master would have loved it because it was so different than what he wrote. And usually the other adaptations they were so afraid from the master that they tried to stay loyal.
I must tell you that I think in this case the movie is better than the book, and it's really, I really think so, because you gave the main role to a woman, and it's rare in Lem's book to use a woman as yeah, we can talk about that, but also you brought this book, this emotional, strong theme, strong layer, which is, I think, lacking in the, if I may criticize, sorry, but your book, your movie is much more emotional than the original book, and you have a woman in the first, in the lead role. So it's, for me, it's a rare occasion that the movie is better than the book. And also, if we are talking about women in Lem's books, I just read Solaris and I realized that there's actually no woman there except the wife, except the wife that gives the hero a lot of guilt and shame and pain. But there are like dozens of scientists in the book, and they are all men. All the great researchers of Solaris, they are men. So please defend yourself and Lem somehow. Yeah. Okay.
And I think it's a neglected film, and I saw it in a huge cinema in Florida when I was visiting a film festival, and I was alone, totally alone, and it's a shame. I think that this film is so underrated. I think it's so courageous what he did, and I think he did it on purpose. That he knew that it's going to be a disaster. But it's super interesting film. It's super courageous, different.
In my opinion, it shouldn't be compared to Solaris.
No, it's a different
Yes,
adaptation.
but you are avoiding my question. Why there are no women?
Yeah, why?
Why there are
Tell
no
us.
women scientists in Lem's books? Because there are many women playing lovely nurses and obnoxious wives. why should they pass the questions to you? I'm sorry, but you must answer that way.
Defend him.
The answer is actually very simple. He based many of his narrative framework on 19th century literature. Writers like Joseph Conrad, for instance, who were simply writing about ships and sailors and captains who in 19th century indeed were mostly male. So I think that the contemporary filmmakers are right in simply substituting the gender, because in many cases you can just as Ari Fallman did in Congress, you can rewrite Ian Tichy as Robin Wright, and it works even better this way. So it's just the 19th century legacy in Lem's books. He was raised on those books, and basically he put.
I'm not blaming, but you know, I'm also Polish, so I must find the defects in everything. So it's not like I'm sorry. This is a joke Israelis have about Polish people. It's absolutely not a true thing.
It is
True.
It is.
My mother was Polish, so pardon me. But I was a bit surprised to see the lack of women in his writing. But I do admire him. I do admire him.
Philip K. Dick has women protagonists in his books.
That's a very good question. That's a very good question.
I tried to remember, and I really doubt it.
And if we are talking about Philip K. Dick, Ari told me that he really thinks there are no good science fiction movies.
Not too many.
Not too many. And why is that? Because there are so many good science fiction books. Why is it so difficult to make a good movie out of a good book?
That's a very good question. I think the advantage of literature over cinema. It's not always like this, but the gap is huge in sci-fi, because as the two gentlemen said before me, it stimulates your imagination and brain when you read sci-fi. And when you try to translate it as a director to the language of cinema, you always get stuck. You can get stuck in the technological thing.
Technological,
And I think if you
it's so difficult to translate ideas and philosophical
absolutely.
views.
It's because it's more philosophical. It's ideas, and obviously I do believe that the great sci-fi writers, and there were many of them, by the way, they had great minds. Really, they were geniuses, going to the fields that they went, and it's tough to adapt it, and you get stuck on technology. Technology ages very fast in filmmaking.
What's your favorite 3 science fiction movies? Do you think they are really great? Is Blade Runner one of them?
Yes, Blade Runner. We have arguments at home about between the first Blade Runner and the 2049.
Yeah.
The first Blade Runner is handcrafted. Everything that Ridley Scott did was made by hands, by miniatures. He built this world. It's unbelievable, and he shot at nighttime in City Hall in LA. This film is handmade, literally handmade. And 2049, with a great cast and the best cinematographer probably today on the planet and everything, it's just so cold, you know, that it's non-comparable. And for me, it shouldn't have been done at all. You know, this is for me. But it's Blade Runner, it's obviously The Odyssey by Kubrick, and Stalker, Tarkovsky, Stalker.
Oh, okay. Okay. Did you ever consider a Total Recall or a Minority Report?
Minority Report, no.
Oh.
Total Recall is there around 10, 11 in my list.
Aaron, do you have one favorite?
My favorite is 2001.
Yeah.
Of course, of course.
And Solaris.
Yes,
Even
of
if
course.
it's not exactly the book. Solaris by Tarkovsky. Some part of sort of a concept, but I want to add, Blade Runner is based on a Philip K. Dick story.
Of course.
So this connects to Lem.
Microphone.
This is connected to Lem because Lem didn't like, to put it mildly, the science fiction genre, especially the American science
He
fiction.
hated.
He
actually
despite
hated.
He called,
Yeah.
he called it a lost case with an exception. What was the exception? Philip K. Dick.
Yes. But Philip K. Dick was writing on acid most of the time, and he wrote an average of 67 pages a day. at
Wow,
night.
it's amazing.
Yeah, and when you read carefully today, maybe you can see that. I mean, ask yourself the percentage of good stuff he wrote. But it's an obsession for filmmakers to adapt him because of Blade Runner.
And you perhaps know, I'm sure you know, that he, in certain time, he wrote a letter to the CIA, claiming that Clem is not a real person, but some kind of communist plot to infiltrate the
Well,
United
if you eat the quantity of acid he ate, you would think that Clem doesn't exist.
So you say genius don't necessarily need to be sane or sober.
By the way, it's one of my dreams was to make a biopic of Philip K. Dick.
That's a wonderful idea.
But the
actually.
family, you cannot deal with it.
Okay, so we have so many interesting things to discuss, but I'm afraid we're slightly out of time. So, does anybody in the crowd wants to ask question? Yeah, but בקול רם בבקשה. Yes?
Yeah.
בקול רם.
Stand up. Van Great movie. I couldn't understand most of it because I don't speak Hebrew fast enough to read the subtitles. But as someone who appreciates science fiction, seeing the passion in trying to describe very wonky sci-fi that goes into philosophical stuff, it reminded me, especially with how you're talking, how it's hard to adapt things, and also your criticism of Blade Runner. I read that you had tried. Yes, 2049 specifically. The next blockbuster sci-fi movie is Dune, which has been tried to adapt, and I had read that you wanted to adapt.
Do you have a question?
Yes, it is. Sorry. You had wanted to adapt the first Jodorowsky's Dune. His version of it, and which was unadaptable and couldn't get made.
Yeah. I saw Jodorowsky's Dune, the documentary, and if you remember at the end of the documentary, he says it needs a crazy animation director to come and take it from me to do it. I'm too old now. So I went to meet him in Paris. I met him in Paris and said, okay, here I am, but he called me. And mainly I wanted to see the book, you know. He made the stories insane. It's a really recommended documentary. You need to see Jodorowsky's Dune. And I went to see him at home, and he brought the book, the original 3,000 pages book that Moebius, which I think is probably one of the best illustrators ever living. Can you imagine him making a storyboard of 3,000 pages with Salvador Dali also? It's a crazy piece of art.
We're very short in time.
But in general, just to cut it short, he didn't have the rights for anything, not for the book, not for the art. So it was just, I just wanted to meet him, you know. So thank you. See the book.
Yes, one very short question. Yes, very short. No questions. Good. Last questions for you. Oh, I also have short and loud.
I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the ways by which Lem's books have been perceived in Poland, starting from 60 years ago to nowadays.
Did you hear that, Wojciech?
No.
Okay, I will.
No, sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry. It's
Did
my
you hear
fault.
the question?
I was wondering.
No, I can't hear. If
So
only if you use
I will
microphone.
say, the question
Okay.
was how Lem's work was perceived in Poland, right?
That's not true. How the perception of his work has changed.
How the perception of Lem's work changed in Poland.
So first of all, he was under communism. Everything was a little bit weird, but for what you can say about this system, he was a best-selling author. But he was seen mostly as a writer for teenagers or children like me. So I didn't mind. But the serious interest in his work began mostly after he actually stopped writing it. So the serious studies of Lem are 1970s, 1980s. Back, which is past his best age. So he was a little bit bitter about that because he wanted to see the actual Congress of Lemology, for instance, which never happened in his prime time. He had to. It happened only when he retired. So first he was seen as a writer who is very popular, but his books do not deserve serious analysis, which was completely wrong, of course. That was, 1950s.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And of course, I think we did not talk about, maybe not even about half of the things we wanted to talk about, but our time is done.
It's for whole day, really. You need whole day to talk about them.
Yeah, not a day, a year, I think. And also, we didn't talk about Lem's reaction to current technology. He knew about the internet, of course. He died at 2000.
He hated it.
He hated the internet.
He has wonderful sayings about the internet.
What is it?
One was that when I first encountered the internet, I realized that so many idiots under the world. I was not aware of it.
Actually, it's a fake quote. He never said that. But
I read it in the Polish website.
It's a fake quote. There's never any source to this quote.
I think these are wonderful words to finish with, and it's so optimistic and so Lem. So I cannot. I can't say anything better. So I thank you deeply, Ari, Aaron, and Woyciech, and we will stay with you. Woyciech, really nice to meet you, and have a nice day in Warsaw, and we will meet you all at the cocktail, I guess. Thank you, Woyciech.
So enjoy your cocktail. Thank you.